How to use spent grain produced in breweries. Any brewer switching to all grain has come to the problem of what to do with the pounds of spent brewer's grain left behind produced in their breweries. Don't let that spent grain go to waste. There are things you can do with it if so inclined. 1. Compost it. Probably the easiest way to put spent grain to work is composting it. One of the easiest ways to use spent grain as compost is to put it right in the ground. You can dig a small ditch between vegetable rows or in flower beds, fill it halfway with spent grain and cover it with dirt. In this way the microbes already in the garden can easily do their work on the newly arrived nutrients. 2. Baking. Spent grain can be used in your own cooking and baking too. The grain can either be used wet or it can be dried and ground into flour. Wet spent grain can be used in low quantities in bread and other baked goods to add flavor and texture. 3. Stock feed. If you happen to own or know someone that owns stock animals such as horses, cows, pigs, sheep, etc., spent grain can be a good source of feed. 4. Flock feed. Many of the same things are true of feeding spent grain to poultry as feeding it to stock animals. Spent grain is a good source of selenium, which has been shown, PDF, to be important to poultry breeding and egg/meat quality. The percentage of spent grain in poultry diets can range from 2% to 20%. If you happen to have bird feeders, you could supplement the regular birdseed mix you use with spent grain, too. 5. Grow mushrooms. Another interesting use of spent grain is as part of the substrate used to grow edible mushrooms. Because of the spent grain's high nitrogen content, it is necessary to mix in some sort of carbonaceous matter, much like composting, such as straw or wood chips. A ratio of 1 part grain to 4 or 5 parts straw works well. 6. Dog treats. You can use your spent grain as filler for homemade dog treats as well. But please be aware that hops are very toxic to dogs, so never use spent grains that have come in contact with hops. Spent brewer's grain can be a valuable resource. If you find you cannot use your spent grain in any of the ways listed above, local farmers or gardeners would likely be happy to take spent grain off your hands.